Hi guys, in this session we'll be discussing three important topics. All these are laboratory techniques. First is electrophoresis, next is ELISA, and the last one is chromatography. Okay, moving on to the first topic, electrophoresis. What is electrophoresis? It refers to the movement of charged particles through an electrolyte when subjected to an electric field. And here the positively charged ions or cations move towards the cathode, while the negatively charged ions or anions move towards the anode. And this technique is broadly used for separation of protons in biological fluids. Okay, next is the factors which affect electrophoresis. The rate of migration or separation of particles during electrophoresis depends on following six factors: net charge on the particle, mass and shape of the particle, the pH of the medium, strength of the electric field, the properties of supporting medium, and the temperature. See, this is the electrophoresis apparatus. It consists of the electrophoresis tank, which holds the buffer and fitted with electrodes, as well as a power pack which supplies the electric current at constant voltage, and serum proteins are separated at pH of 8.6 using a buffer. The buffer is normally a Barbitone buffer. Okay, and we are either using a supporting medium as agarose slide or filter paper. Okay, this is the agarose slide. This is filter paper which is using for support. Okay, support medium for filter electrophoresis. First one, filter paper. In this, whenever support medium is filter paper, main disadvantage is it takes very long time, nearly 16 to 18 hours, and diffusion of particles will also lead to blurring of margins in the paper. Okay, second one is agar or agarose gel. They are heterogeneous polysaccharides. Okay, they are viscous liquids when hot, but when cooled, they form a gel. Okay, this gel is prepared in the buffer and spread over the microscopic slides and allowed to cool. And a sample is placed over this agarose gel, which has to be separated. Okay, normally this is used to separate different types of protein mixtures and nucleic acids. Normally, when we use agarose gel, the time consumed is less, and we see 5 different bands. Last one is polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. It is similar to agarose gel, but what is the main difference is after separation, the serum shows more than 20 bands, while only 5 bands are seen in agarose gel electrophoresis. Okay, now the protons are separated. Next is visualization of the proton band which are separated. Okay, the steps are we have use the fixative like acetone and fix the electrophoresis that slide. Then it is stained using dyes. Then next step is destaining using dilute acetic acid. Next, its electrophotogram can be scanned using densitometer, where light is passed and the absorption of light is proportional to the quantity of proton present on the band. More is the light absorption, more is the quantity of proton present there. These are the steps which we use for visualization of proton band. Okay, this is the normal electrophoretic pattern of normal serum. You have to remember this very clearly, understand it. Okay, this is the point of application. If you see this, first band is gamma globulins and the last one is albumin. So gamma globulins have least mobility while albumin has highest mobility. Okay, other bands, gamma globulins mainly made up of immunoglobulin. Next is beta is macroglobulin. Then alpha 2 you have, alpha 1 you have, then albumin band. Okay, this is the normal electrophoretic pattern. If you remember this normal pattern, you can diagnose various clinical conditions which has abnormal electrophoretic pattern. I'll explain you some basic abnormal electrophoretic patterns. See, this is the normal one. Okay, so next one is multiple myeloma. What is multiple myeloma? Multiple myeloma is immunoglobulin secreting tumor or malignancy of single clone of immunoglobulin secreted in higher amount. So gamma globulin is increased. So you can see an M band here. This is M band or myeloma band is seen in the electrophoresis. Next is in chronic infection. Chronic infection, albumin band is shortened. Next is nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome also we can see protons are lost in urine. So there is hypoalbuminemia. So you can see hypoalbuminemia. And alpha 2 protons are prominent in nephrotic syndrome. Last is liver cirrhosis. What happens in liver cirrhosis? Protein is produced in liver. So proteins are reduced in liver cirrhosis. See, albumin band is short. Here, albumin band is becoming short. So albumin is less in the serum. Okay, remember this. Mainly, you should remember multiple myeloma, nephrotic syndrome, and liver cirrhosis because they are of immense importance. Also, you see in chronic infection, gamma globulin band is slightly increased, but it's smooth increase only. Okay. Moving on to immunoelectrophoresis. It is also an important thing. It is based on antigen antibody reaction. It gives very precise results. Okay, what is the procedure? In this electrophoretic, this slide, we are adding the antigen containing serum, well containing antigen containing serum. Then the antigen, the proteins are separated, but it is not visible. Then we are adding the antibody to the trough and incubated. Antigen antibody reaction takes place. Then we can see the patterns of different proteins present there. See, you can see the precipitation arcs in this picture. This precipitation arcs are formed where antigen antibody molecules are at 1:1 ratio. The main role of antibody here is to visualize the antigen present there. Okay, so this method is very sensitive and specific than ordinary electrophoresis. Okay, that's all about electrophoresis. We're moving on to the next method, ELISA. ELISA is the abbreviation for enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. Its main role is to detect antigen or antibody in the specimen by using enzyme substrate system. Let us see the principle of ELISA. First, we are using immunosorbent. It is used for absorbing material. It is an absorbing material that absorbs antigen or antibody in the test serum. We are using it. Okay. Next is the enzyme. It is used to label the antigen or antibody. Next is the substrate chromatin system. Next, when we add substrate chromatin, the enzyme reacts with the substrate, which in turn will activate the chromatin to produce color. Chromatin is color producing substance. The color change is detected in ELISA reader. See, if you want, this is the principle. See, antigen, if you want, see, antigen is present, then antibody complex we are adding with the antibody we are adding that is labeled with the enzyme. Okay, then we are adding substrate. The enzyme will activate the substrate and substrate chromatin, and chromatin produces color and detected by spectrometry. I'll repeat once again. First, antigen is present in the serum, then enzyme labeled antibody is added, then substrate chromatin is added. This enzyme will activate the chromatin to produce color. Okay, the color is detected by spectrophotometry, sorry. Okay, this is the principle. Types of ELISA, we have 5 types: direct ELISA, indirect ELISA, sandwich ELISA, competitive ELISA, and ELISpot. We'll be discussing about the first 3 in detail. That is important for you. Direct ELISA, it is used for the detection of antigen in the test serum. Okay, here the primary antibody is labeled with the enzyme, while in indirect ELISA, you're adding the secondary antibody is labeled with the enzyme. Secondary antibody is nothing but anti-human immunoglobulins. Okay, what happens? We can see. First, in the well, test serum is added that contains the antigen. Next, we are adding the primary antibody that is labeled with the enzyme. Okay, next substrate chromatin is adding, which is then there is the production of color, which is read by the ELISA reader. Okay, this is the principle of direct ELISA. First, well is having in the well, test serum contains antigen. Primary antibody that is labeled with the enzyme is added. Next, we add substrate chromatin. There is production of color. Color change is detected by the ELISA reader. This is the principle of direct ELISA. This is the indirect ELISA for detection of antibody. Here, for detection of antibody, wells are coated with antigen. And primary antibody is the test serum is added. And the test serum contains primary antibody. Next, secondary antibody that is labeled with the enzyme is added. Here, the secondary antibody is nothing but antibody against the human immunoglobulin. Okay. Next, substrate chromatin is added. There is development of color. This color change is detected by ELISA reader. You should remember in indirect ELISA, we are using secondary antibody, that is antibody against human immunoglobulin. But in direct ELISA, enzyme is labeled with primary antibody. Okay. Also, for detection of antibody in direct ELISA, the walls are coated with antigen before itself. That's all. This is the for detection of antibody. Next, for detection of antigen, first we are adding the test serum which contains the antigen which gets adsorbed to the wall. Then primary antibody is added. Again, secondary antibody conjugated with the enzyme is added. Then substrate chromatin is added. There is development of color which is read by the ELISA reader. This is the method for detection of antigen. Here we are not coating the wall well with the antigen. Only for detection of antibodies in indirect ELISA, we are coating the well with the antigen. Okay, we completed direct and indirect ELISA. Moving on to sandwich ELISA, we'll see the principle and mechanism. Here, wells coated with capture antibody. Wells are initially coated with antibody, then test serum, which is containing the antigen, is added. So, next we are adding the primary antibody conjugate with the enzyme. See, initial antibody is this. This is the antigen present in the test serum. We are adding this orange color primary antibody conjugate. Then substrate chromatin is added. Color change is produced. This color change is detected by ELISA reader. Okay, why it is called sandwich ELISA? Because this antigen is sandwiched between the antibodies, two antibodies. So it is called sandwich ELISA. What is direct sandwich ELISA? In indirect, what we use? We use secondary antibody conjugate. That is the difference between primary and secondary sandwich ELISA. Sorry, direct and indirect sandwich ELISA. Okay. That's all about ELISA. Moving on to next principle, next method, it is chromatography. Chromatography. Chroma means color. And what is chromatography? Chromatography is the process for separation of components in a solution by differences in their migration rate as the solution mixture or mobile phase is passed over a stationary phase. Whenever a mobile phase is passed over the stationary phase, on the basis of their migratory rate, the compounds are separated. This is the principle of chromatography. Now, let us see the principle of chromatography. First, what is mobile phase? Mobile phase is a mixture of substances that have to be separated. Next is the stationary phase. It is a porous solid matrix through which mobile phase percolates. So, the interaction between the mobile and the stationary phase causes the separation of substances. Okay, this is the principle. Okay, classification of chromatography. On the basis of interaction, it is classified into partition, exchange, and adsorption chromatography. Next, on the basis of nature of stationary phase, paper chromatography, thin layer chromatography, and column chromatography. On the basis of both stationary and mobile phase, it is gas liquid chromatography. Moving on to the first type, it is adsorption chromatography. Here, see this picture first, and I'll explain you. For stationary phase is alumina or silica gel or silicates. The mobile phase is mixture of protons. Here, what is the principle is? It is based on the difference in affinity for adsorption of substances. Substances get separated. See this picture. See here, the sample is applied and the solvent is added. The particles with high affinity will be attracted, adsorbed, and come out slowly. The particles with low affinity will not be adsorbed and it will be coming out fastly. So molecules are separated as they move into different bands. First, the red band with low affinity is first separated out, then the green, and then the blue. So it is based on adsorption, affinity of our adsorption, we are separating it. Next is partition chromatography. It is used for separation of amino acids and peptides. Here the stationary phase is solid or liquid. The mobile phase may be either gas or liquid mixture. Okay. Next is paper chromatography. Here the stationary phase is the water which is held in a solid support of the filter paper. Here in this here we are having the water which is held with the filter paper. This is the filter paper. On the mobile phase is a mixture of butanol, acetic acid, and water. When we apply the mixture that is to be separated here, they migrate to the solvent takes the mixture above, and each component get move to this particular distance and get separated. And the distance to which each component moves is depend on the partition coefficient. Okay, this is the paper chromatography. Understood? Moving on to the RF value. RF is ratio of friends. It is nothing but the ratio of distance traveled by the solute by distance traveled by solvent. For a particular particular substance, the RF is constant, and the spots may be identified by the RF of unknown substance and comparing with the standard substances. When we know the standard substance's RF value, we can compare it with the unknown substance and we can identify what is that unknown substance. Moving on to the next part is thin layer chromatography. Here the stationary phase is water held in silica gel which is kept in a glass plate. Mobile phase is solvent mixture. The principle is similar to paper chromatography, but advantage it consumes very less time. See, this is the picture. Similar to the paper chromatography, we are applying the solution mixture which has to be separated here. The particles move up and get separated, but advantage very less time is taken. Okay, same principle as paper chromatography. Next is gas liquid chromatography. Here the stationary phase is liquid which is supported by a silica in a narrow column, and the mobile phase is a gas mixture. See, here is a substance which has to be separated. Here it is a substance has to be separated, and the fractions emerging from this column are detected by a detecting meter here. Okay, this is more suitable for compounds like lipids which resist degradation at even high temperature. Okay, this is the mechanism. Next is gel filtration chromatography. It is also called as molecular sieving. Here, the hydrophilic cross-linked gels like acrylamide, agarose, and dextrins are used for separation of molecules. The gels are present, and gels particles are porous in nature, so that large molecules, when are poured, comes out faster, while smaller particles are retained. It attaches to the beads and takes long time to come out. See, in this picture, you can see. See, in this first picture, what is happening? The protein solution is added at the top. The second picture, the smaller proteins get inside the beads and takes longer time to come out, while the larger ones come out very fastly and are detected. Okay, same is given in this GIF, right? The right side. This is the principle of gel filtration chromatography. Next is HPLC. HPLC is the abbreviation for high performance liquid chromatography or high pressure liquid chromatography. Stationary phase at a silica or alumina microbeads. See, here the liquid passes under high pressure and the column may be packed with materials for adsorption, partition or ion exchange, and the principle is same. Okay, the reverse HPLC, we are using hydrophobic polymers as stationary phase for separating the peptides. Only the stationary phase differs in reverse HPLC and this HPLC, the stationary phase is varying. Okay, this is the picture showing the HPLC. Here it is mobile phase is going and under high pressure and it is getting separated. Next is ion exchange chromatography. It is based on the electrostatic attraction between charged molecules to oppositely charged molecules. If it is a positively charged, it is attracted by negative charge. See, we are using resins. Resins are nothing but they are cross-linked polymers and porous for ions to diffuse. We have both cation exchange resins and anion exchange resins. Cation exchange resins use sulfonic acid or carboxylic groups, while anion exchange resins use quaternary nitrogen. See, this is the picture. See, if we are using agarose, which is positively charged, here it attracts negatively charged particles and the positively charged particles are repelled and come out first. Okay. Next is the affinity chromatography. It is based on the high affinity for specific protons. We are separating the protein particles. See, in this picture, in this immunoglobulins are fixed on the glass column. When we add a mixture, if the antigens are present, it is attracted towards the immunoglobulin and the remaining substances go out. This is the principle of affinity chromatography. Another example, NAD, which is used to purify dehydrogenases. Okay, that's all about chromatography. Moving on to the important questions. In the first electrophoresis topic, you should know the application and principle of electrophoresis, and the abnormal electrophoretic patterns also can be asked. Second, ELISA, you should know the principle of ELISA and direct and indirect ELISA. That's all. In chromatography, you should know the principle and specifically about thin layer chromatography, affinity chromatography, and paper chromatography you should know. Okay, that's all in the session. Thank you. Hope all of you understood. Thank you.